how do you handle fear? You seem to be somebody who's moved through it, who's launched a number of businesses, who's changed careers, made huge changes in life. How do you handle it? And my answer is always a question back, which is fear of what? And the three big fears that always come up are fear of failure, fear of judgment, and oddly enough, fear of success. There's a real fear of success. It freaks people out. Anyone ever have, think of a business for a second and say, but if this scales too quickly, I'll never be able to handle the demand and it'll shut me down, it'll destroy my life? It's actually a real concern. But the real thing, the big thing, when you go back to the top 10 phobia list, of these three, the thing that's always on there is fear of failure. And fear of failure can be this devastating thing because we just ask this question. We ask, what if I fail? And then instead of just creating a realistic scenario, saying, okay, this is what happens and I'll get through it, what we do is we create a doomsday scenario. And I know nobody in this room has done this, but you probably know some people that may have done this. You spin in your head, oh my God, if this thing collapses, I'm going to lose everything. My home, my relationships, I'm probably going to get thrown out of the country, if not the planet. I'm going to have to live in the Arctic. They can take away my shoes. I have to eat raw fish for the rest of my life. It's going to be the biggest disaster on the planet. And then that creates this thing where it shuts us down. It just takes the fear and anxiety and it ramps it up big time. But then we do something even more powerful. We take that doomsday scenario and we hit spin. Nobody's done that either, right? So what happens when you hit spin is, sadly, even though we're sitting in this beautiful university hall and some of the brightest people in the world, I'm sure, are in here, we are so much closer to Pavlov's dogs than we would ever like to think. Because the way our brains work is repetition breeds belief. We can start with a thought, a fact, a scenario, or a vision, and in our minds, regardless of whether it starts in truth, the more we repeat it, the more we believe that to be the absolute truth, the only possible outcome. Not a mental model, but the model of the world. There is no other option. And the more we buy into that, the more we buy into the fact that this is the only possible outcome for this thing, the more we're absolutely engulfed with fear and anxiety, and the more it becomes paralysis. We can't move. We can't move. But there's one thing which is even more insidious than that. It stops us. Our focus on this stops us from asking two other questions, which are mission critical to our ability to reframe fear and move through it. And those two questions are, what if I do nothing? And what if I succeed? So let's go back. We're going to cycle back, and we're going to go through these three questions. What if I fail? Now, it's important to ask this question. You don't blow it off. But in asking it, what I want you to do next time is take that question, and instead of creating a fantastical doomsday scenario, what I want you to do is create a very realistic scenario. What if I fail? Write it out. Create a picture. Make it a movie. Make it as vivid as you can. But that's only half of the what if I fail question. The other half is how will I recover? And give equal attention to that picture. Plot out exactly what you will do to get yourself back. And what most people find is just doing that alone goes a long way towards disempowering the fear of failure, because they realize almost everything is recoverable. It may suck a little bit, it may be hard, but it's recoverable. Take that scenario now, the realistic scenario, set it aside. And then we move on to the second question, which is, what if I do nothing? And for a lot of people, what if I do nothing seems like a no-brainer question, but the reality is, for most people, the what if I do nothing is the most horrible scenario out there. Because if there's an opportunity, if there's something you're not doing now that would make you come alive because you're being paralyzed by fear and anxiety, if those opportunities present themselves over and over and over during the course of your life, 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, and you keep backing away and doing nothing, do you think that you just keep going sideways in life and you'll just kind of hum along? If you're a little bit unhappy now, do you think 10, 20, 30 years of doing nothing will keep you a little bit unhappy? No. If you're a little bit overweight now, do you think 10, 20, or 30 years of sitting behind a desk and eating cheesecake for breakfast will keep you the same weight? If your relationships are a little bit tense now, do you think if you do nothing, they'll still be a little bit tense 10, 20, 30 years from now? No. There is no sideways in life. Simple fact is, life applies friction. There is no sideways. There's up or down, and life conspires organically to slowly grind us to a halt. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing. Part of our job is to apply lubrication and energy to change the trajectory and go up. There is no sideways. So when you answer the do nothing scenario, you create a very realistic picture of what will my life look like if I do nothing. And what most people find is when you track that out 5, 10, 15, 20 years, That is the far more terrifying scenario than failure and recovery. Create that scenario in your head, set it next to the failure and recovery. And now we get to move to the third one. The third one, and this is where we have fun, because so far we've been talking about reframing and disempowering fear and anxiety, but now we talk about hope. Now we move to the other side of the equation. Where am I going? And we ask the final question, what if I succeed? What if I succeed? Right now, I have another question for you. Who in this room is sitting here? Who in this room is sitting here not doing something that they believe in their heart has the opportunity to make them come alive? Maybe it's introducing yourselves to somebody you would like to connect with. Maybe it's starting a company. Maybe it's starting a project, whatever it is. Who is not doing that thing? Who would do it if you were 100% certain you would not fail? A couple of hands. So we've got like 50% hands up and 50% who are in denial, which is okay. So the fact is, what I want you to do now is if you have that thing in your mind, what is that thing with the opportunity to make you come alive that you're not doing because you don't have that certainty quite now and you're freaked out about failing? Close your eyes, and I want you to place yourself 5 years out in the future now, and I want you to paint a picture as if you've already done it. You are there. That fantasy scenario is done. The thing that you thought you couldn't do and you were freaked out about trying, it's done. You're there. You've achieved it beyond your wildest imagination. What does that look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? How does the air feel against your face in that place? And then I want you to do one more thing with that vision. Now I want you to hit spin. Helen Keller once said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing, and I'm inclined to agree. I cannot resign myself to the notion of living the rest of my life in a vacuum of regret. I cannot resign myself to the notion that I will have spent time on this earth but never having done anything to actually come alive out of fear. And I cannot fathom the notion that in some way, through my action or inaction, I may have taught my daughter, my little girl, to do the same. So as you move forward from this morning, the challenge I issue to you is take that thing that we just put into your mind, that you've been putting off because you're afraid of failing. Take it and bring it present again, and ask the 3 questions. What if I fail and recover? What if I do nothing? And by God, what if I succeed? Thank you.